The black cells breathed like a vast stone lung around Eddard Stark, every draft a wheeze, every drip of fetid water a sluggish heartbeat counting down the moments of his captivity. Chains no longer bound his wrists. The Lannisters wanted him lucid, talking, pliable. But the weight of the realm's betrayal shackled him more firmly than iron manacles ever could. He lifted heavy lids, focusing on the wedge of torchlight that spilled beneath the door. Somewhere along that corridor, gold-clad Lannister guards murmured in languid tones, wagering on his fate as though it were merely another toss of dice in some smoky King's Landing tavern. Ned drew in the rank air, tasting rot and despair, and forced his mind northward. He pictured snow swirling over the Godswood pool, ice forming opaque petals across its glassy surface, the red leaves of the weirwood drifting upon it like drops of blood. He lingered on Catelyn's smile, and on Robb's earnest brow furrowed with far more responsibility than a boy of 16 should bear. He dared not imagine Sansa's bewildered gaze or Arya's savage defiance. To evoke them here invited a heartbreak sharp enough to fell even a wolf of the north. Footsteps approached. A latch clicked. Ser Barristan Selmy stepped inside, white cloak trailing behind him like moonlight through shadow, the door sealing out the cell's only light source until the night tugged the torch from its wall bracket. Flame licked the gloom, revealing the grooves of sorrow etched upon Ned's face and, equally, the exhausted compassion upon Ser Barristan's. "My lord," Barristan said. Voice kept low lest stone carry it to unwanted ears. "The Queen convenes a council. They mean to parade you before them at dawn, extract an apology, perhaps force you to take the black." "An apology built upon a lie," Ned replied, throat coarse from disuse. "She knows the truth of her children's seed. She fears only that the realm might believe it." Barristan hesitated, the wrinkles round his pale eyes deepening. "Truth and fear seldom travel separate roads. Will you bend?" "I cannot," Ned said, the words dragging up from a place deeper than bone. "If I bend, Winterfell bends, the North bends, honor bends, and in bending it breaks." The old knight inclined his head, understanding yet pained. "Then steel yourself, my lord. War stands nearer than dawn." He swallowed. "Yet there remains one ancient escape from words and politics. Demand trial by combat. The law of the faith accords any highborn man that right. No queen, no council can gainsay it without offending the Seven, and offense to gods invites rebellion from men." Ned found his heart racing. He, a veteran of 2 great wars, had slain men upon the bloody grass of the Trident, but that had been a lifetime ago. His knee yet stiffened in damp air. His sword arm still carried the ache of a mended fracture. And yet the idea glimmered, wild and perilous and strangely pure in its simplicity. Let the gods decide. Would they honor the demand? Ned asked. "They must appear to," Barristan murmured, "or risk the small folk claiming they fear your innocence. It might buy you a path that words alone cannot." Ned thought of Robert, once so alive, now entombed in stone and cedar. The king would have laughed at such drama, thrust a warhammer into Ned's hands, and dared the world to deny him. Robert was gone. The realm lay trembling between lions and stags, wolves and dragons yet unborn. Trial by combat. One duel to cut through the knot of treachery and lies. The torch hissed. Ned looked into the flame, seeing ice and fire dancing together. "I will demand it," he said, "but not for hope of victory, for hope of justice." High in Maegor's holdfast, Queen Cersei Lannister reclined on a cushioned chaise, swathed in crimson silk, goblet of arbor gold dangling from fingers set with rubies. The chamber smelled of cinnamon and roses, oversweet, an olfactory fortress against the rot of flea bottom and the sour tang of fear pervading the city. She watched the candle flames tremble in a draught and imagined them as tiny torches borne by a mob come to tear her down. Varys, soft-footed and softer-voiced, stood by the window, listening to the city's nighttime murmurs as though they were confidences told only to him. "Lord Stark will demand trial by combat," the spider intoned, as placid as a man remarking on tomorrow's weather. Cersei's hand tightened on her goblet. He means to die with a sword in hand? Sentimentally northern. Perhaps, Varys allowed, yet sentiment sways the crowd. A duel crowns him with tragic nobility. Casts us, my queen, in the role of tyrants should we deny the right. The High Septon himself would protest. Then let him have it. Cersei's smile cut. I shall name Ser Gregor Clegane my champion. At that, even Varys's painted brows rose a fraction. Some might decry the choice as excessive. Cersei lifted herself, gold hair spilling over her shoulders like molten metal. Excessive? Ser Gregor wields excess as readily as his sword. If Ned Stark craves the judgment of the gods, the mountain will deliver it. The hall of the throne buzzed at dawn like a hive stirred by a stick. The Iron Throne loomed above a floor polished to mirror sheen, and on every balcony the banners of great lords wavered in the chill breath of morning. The Crimson Lion, the Golden Rose, the flayed man shrieking on pink field, even Stag and Baratheon crown, though the true stag lay in the crypts below. Joffrey perched on the throne's jagged steel seat, petulance disguised as majesty by the thin circlet resting upon his yellow hair. To his left sat Cersei, eyes hard as cut garnet. On his right Grand Maester Pycelle shifted like a sack of bones. The doors boomed open. Ned Stark entered flanked by Lannister guards. Rags had been replaced by plain wool of gray and white. Though cleansed, he looked gaunt, a wolf starved but unbroken. His gray eyes swept the hall, lingering on Sansa, pale, trembling, and found no sign of Arya. Good, he thought. Perhaps Yoren spirited her away after all. He knelt as custom demanded, but bowed his head to none save the conscience that dwelt within him. When Joffrey bid him rise, Ned's voice carried across the stone like winter wind. I stand accused of treason. I deny it, and I assert my right under the faith to prove my innocence by trial of the seven. I demand trial by combat. Shock rippled through the court. The High Septon, robed in cloth of gold so heavy he swayed like a laden ship, raised both hands. The gods smile upon righteous battle. The demand is lawful. Cersei's ruby lips parted in a smile serpentine and serene. His grace accepts. May the seven dispense true and swift justice. She turned almost lazily. I name Ser Gregor Clegane champion of the crown. A palpable shudder traversed the hall as the mountain stepped forth in blackened steel. He removed his helm to reveal a face hammered by violence. A brow like a rampart, eyes black as obsidian, and a half-healed scar that split his cheek in a crooked grin. Blood seemed to steam from his very presence. Ned's gaze held steady. He had known Gregor's terror since the Trident, seen the carnage left in his wake along the Tumblestone. Courage alone could not conquer that mountain of muscle and hate. Yet honor did not walk alone. I shall be my own champion, Ned announced, a gasp soared to the rafters. Littlefinger, leaning against a pillar with mock indolence, smirked. So the wolf means to bait the lion with his own tooth. Ned's joints ached at the mere notion, but pride would not allow a chink in the armor of resolve. If he died, he would die on his feet, a Stark of Winterfell. Still, he felt icy fingers of doubt. His last true duel had been against Arthur Dayne, and even that had been many blades against one. Time had not improved his swordsmanship. Yet before doubt could root, a voice rang out across the hall. My Lord Father shall not fight alone. Robb Stark strode into view, gray cloak swirling. He must have ridden through the night, for travel dust still powdered his boots. Behind him marched a wedge of Northmen, Hallis Malin, Great John Umber towering with axe in hand, young Torrhen Karstark. Their sudden appearance cleaved murmurs into silence. Ned's heart stuttered. Robb, I claim the right of champion, Robb declared, face flushed with equal parts fury and fear. Let the gods decide between the heir of Winterfell and the butcher of the Riverlands. Joffrey's youthful scowl danced between outrage and perverse delight. 2 Starks in one day, excellent sport. Cersei whispered into his ear, and the boy king's mouth curved. Very well, Joffrey announced. Ser Gregor against the young wolf. The name landed as prophecy. Across the hall, Ser Gregor's laugh rumbled like an avalanche. He relished fresh meat, but Robb's shoulders squared beneath invisible northern snow. He drew his blade, Icebreaker, forged in Moat Caelan's old smithy, raising it in salute. Sunlight lanced through high windows, catching the steel and splintering it into 100 cold stars. The tourney grounds at the dragon pit were hastily repurposed, tiered stands crusted with early morning frost and breath misting like ghosts above the throng. Lords and small folk alike pressed shoulder to shoulder, unified by that ancient hunger to witness men gamble their lives for an instant's glory. High Septon and Council occupied canopied dais. Cersei sat enthroned upon crimson cushions. Beside her, Joffrey gnawed joyfully at a sugared plum. Ned's place was at the hedge of the ring, Sansa clinging to his arm, Varys and Littlefinger whispering half-heard wagers. At his son's back he saw only a boy grown too quickly into a man's valor. But the gods might favor youth tempered by northern winter. Robb knelt, pressed 2 fingers to the dry earth, and murmured a prayer to the old gods. He traced a half-remembered visage of the weirwood's face in the dust. Across the ring Ser Gregor swung his great sword in lazy arcs that stirred the air like storm winds. A horn sounded. Silence dropped like a curtain. Robb advanced, steps measured, eyes never leaving Clegane's center. Mountain answered with a bull's charge. The ground shook beneath each stride. Their first clash rang like Smith's hammer on anvil. Sparks flew. Robb slid aside, sword sliding along Gregor's edge to deflect, but the force sent him staggering. Before the mountain recovered, Robb darted in, slicing across steel greave to raise a hiss of blood where armor gapped at the knee. The crowd roared. Cersei's fingers tightened on the dais railing. Gregor only smiled, if that grimace could be called such. He lifted his blade two-handed and rained blows down like meteors. Robb retreated, parried, deflected, each impact numbing shoulder to spine. One mistimed defense shattered the wolf's shield to splinters. Sawdust whirled around them, mingling with the scent of iron. Ned found himself praying in silence. Memories of teaching his son in Winterfell's yard flooded him. How Robb laughed the first time he bruised Maester Luwin's wooden sword arm. How he learned balance on slick stone during autumn rains. "Keep your feet," Ned whispered now, though no sound escaped. A Stark must always keep his feet. Robb rolled beneath a horizontal slash that might have cleaved him from collar to hip. Rising within the mountain's guard, he slammed pommel to visor, ringing Gregor's helm like a bell. Gregor stumbled, a giant shaken awake, and Robb drove forward, slashing thigh, hip, harness strap, anything soft he could reach. Blood darkened the dust. Gregor bellowed rage and pain and something akin to awe. Then his gauntlet smashed across Robb's helm. The younger man's world spun. He hit earth, vision swimming with stars. Gregor raised sword overhead. A thrown dagger clanged off Gregor's pauldron. The mountain turned, snarling. Across the ring Arya Stark stood on the rail, another knife poised. How she'd slipped her watchers, no one knew. The distraction was slender but worth its weight in kingdoms. Robb surged up, blade thrusting. Icebreaker pierced chain mail beneath Gregor's outstretched arm, driving home just shy of the heart. Gregor roared, but the blade was lodged. He seized Robb's throat, lifting him clear off the ground, fingers closing like an iron trap. Time slowed to a drop of water edging down a leaf. Ned stepped forward before he knew it, guards bristling spears to halt him. Sansa screamed. The High Septon began to pray. Robb's free hand scrabbled at his belt. His dirk flashed, plunging between Gregor's gorget plates. Crimson geysered. The mountain's grip spasmed, loosening. Robb wrenched away, rolled, and the giant toppled forward, earth shaking, sword slipping from lifeless fingers. Silence stunned the arena, broken only by Gregor's ragged final breaths. Robb rose on trembling legs, helm cracked, blood spattered across face and hauberk. He raised his dirk skyward in salute, to gods, to north, to Father Sentinel still on the rail. Joffrey lurched to his feet. "No." "Tricked. Witchcraft. The gods have spoken," the High Septon proclaimed, voice trembling yet resolute. "The crown's champion is slain. Lord Eddard Stark is innocent. Cersei stood, cool rage warring with calculation. Her fingers curled upon the dais, but she showed no other sign of defeat. In that moment she looked every inch Tywin's daughter. Yet law bound even lions when shouted by crowds of sparrows. She inclined her head, a queen conceding a chess move rather than a battle. "Very well," she said, voice smooth as satin drawn across steel. "The Northman walks free. For now." Ned's knees threatened to buckle, but he forced spine straight. He would not let her see relief. Robb approached. They clasped wrists, a silent pledge renewed. That night, the Stark encampment within the Red Keep's outer ward burned with torches and quiet exultation. Yet joy sat uneasy upon Ned's shoulders. Victory bought here in southern sun often unveiled fangs beneath its smile. Gregor's death would ripple across Westeros, through House Clegane, through the riverlands he'd ravaged, through Tywin Lannister's iron pride. Blood begets blood. Within a canvas pavilion, Ned knelt before Robb, hands upon his son's shoulders. "You fought with honor." Robb shook his head. "Honor enough, maybe, but little skill. He should have killed me a dozen times. Yet he did not." Ned's thumb brushed a bruise blooming along Robb's jaw. "The old gods were with you." "Arya was with me," Robb corrected, and they both smiled, though tears threatened the edges of Ned's eyes. Nearby, Arya scowled under Septa Mordane's admonishing glare. "Next time I'll aim for his eye," Arya muttered. "Seven forbid there be a next time," Ned said. He drew Arya close, the scent of sweat and horse and youth hugging back at him. Outside, Gretchen's booming laughter carried over the softer hum of northern men planning their journey home. Yet beyond ward walls, Lannister lanterns glowed like baleful embers waiting for wind enough to become conflagration. Ned parted the tent flap and looked upon King's Landing's distant silhouettes. Aegon's high hill crowned in Red Keep, Flea Bottom's wretched maze, the September of Baelor shimmering under moonlight like a pearl perched on a carcass. Somewhere within, Cersei sharpened schemes upon whetstones of wounded pride. The duel had given him freedom, vindication, perhaps even glory for House Stark. It had not slain the lioness, nor ended the game she played. If anything, the board had grown larger, and every piece now bore the mountain's blood upon it. He breathed deep of salt and smoke. North called, winter called louder. Yet first came the perilous road between king and queen, truth and treason, ice and fire. Morning would decide whether wolves slipped past golden gates or whether they'd be hunted through city streets like beasts. In 5 hours time dawn would break. 5 hours was nothing to the turning of seasons, yet it was the span of a desperate lifetime. Ned Stark closed his eyes, prayed once more, for guidance, for mercy, for the distant howl of home, and prepared to fight on. Night yielded to a bruised violet dawn, but the Red Keep slumbered as if unwilling to open its eyes upon the day that followed the mountain's fall. Ned paced the flagstones outside the infirmary pavilion where Maester Franken, one of Pycelle's lesser students, doubtless assigned as a quiet slight, rebound Robb's cracked ribs and stitched the gash above his brow. Candle smoke seeped through the canvas seams, mingling with the smell of boiled needle thread and wet leather. Every few moments a soft grunt of pain drifted out, muffled by northern stoicism. Ned's boot heels counted slow, steady beats. He would not allow fear to quicken them. Soon the maester emerged, bowed, and assured Lord Stark that the young wolf would heal, so long as excitement is kept at bay. Ned thanked him, though he suspected excitement would be the least of their troubles. Inside, Robb reclined on a cot, tunic unlaced to expose fresh bandages that crawled like pale vines across chest and flank. Bruises blossomed purple in the lantern light. Yet when Robb saw his father, he struggled upright, pride overcoming pain. "Easy," Ned murmured, coaxing him down. He poured watered wine, held the cup to Robb's lips. "You fought as well as any man I've ever seen." Robb swallowed, winced. "As well as enough, you mean?" A shadow of doubt flickered in his gray eyes, so like Catelyn's when storms threatened Winterfell's sea tower. "If Arya hadn't." "Arya did," Ned said, fingers tightening around the cup. "And you did. The gods only weave. They do not explain their stitching. Rest. Robb exhaled, head easing against the bolster. I dreamed of gray wind, he whispered. He was howling at a lion made of snow that melted before it could bare its teeth. Ned smoothed his son's hair, feeling the damp heat beneath. Dreams are riddles. Solve them later, when you smell pine instead of torch smoke. He kissed Robb's brow and slipped out. Outside, Hallis Mullen stood guard with 24 Northmen, eyes raw from sleeplessness yet keen as flint. They saluted. Ned returned the gesture, then gestured aside for Hallis. Double the watch, he said. No man approaches the pavilion without my leave, even in maester robes. I am lord. Hallis's hand drifted to sword hilt. Some of the gold cloaks glared daggers when we brought the boy here. Word is Ser Marin's Menvi been relieved of duty, till tempers cool. Yet tempers cool like oil catches fire.
Ned's gut clenched.
Oil can be doused. Steel cannot. Beyond the keep, King's Landing wrestled with its own turmoil. Word of the duel spread faster than plague. By mid-morning, every tanner's apprentice, every septa's novice, every cell's word drunk on sour red knew that a wolf had toppled a mountain and lived. Myth sprouted on every corner. Some claimed Robb tore out Gregor's heart with his teeth. Others swore the Northmen fought under an invisible cloak of spirits. Street preachers hailed the judgment of the Seven. Smugglers wagered that Tywin Lannister would put the city to fire before moonturn. Within the Tower of the Hand, Ned convened his household, but the tower no longer belonged to him. Lannister guards patrolled the outer galleries. The red silk draperies Cersei ordered hung like flayed skins across stone. Still, Ned claimed the council chamber, if only for an hour, staging maps of the King's Road atop the long table Robert once littered with boar ribs. Across from him stood Varys, clad in lavender velvet, hands folded like a mourner's. Littlefinger lounged against an arched window, teasing the knuckle bones he used. D as dice. A half-smile played on his lips, as though amusement shielded him from every sharp edge. You have bought a respite, Varys said in tones that suggested condolences rather than congratulations. Yet queens seldom forget insults, and a corpse as mighty as Ser Gregor's will not lie easy. The small folk cheer you now, but wolves make poor monarchs in their tails. Too lean, too northern. Should Lannisters choose to wag their gold around the markets, your praises may sour by sunset. Ned studied the eunuch. What do you counsel? Grovel? Flee? Littlefinger clicked dice against palm. Fleeing has merit, he said brightly. Like a debtor leaving town before the purse-cutter's call. I can purchase swift horses, arrange a barge. A crimson bribe here, a quiet throat cut there. Suddenly you ride north by dusk. And leave Sansa hostage? Ned's voice flaked frost from the air. Leave the realm to Cersei's spawn? Realms survive worse. Littlefinger shrugged. One king's bastard, another's truth. The game pieces topple, yet the board endures. Ned pushed away, turning to the window. Flecks of sunlight danced on Blackwater Bay. War galleys bobbed like iron petals on a dark pond. He felt the weight of unseen eyes. Eyes of his dead sister whispering promise, of Robert's shade glaring accusation, of Bran lying broken miles away. I do not intend to flee, he said. I intend to speak to Renly. He commands the Stormlands and a third of the City Watch. He saw the bastard hair in Joffrey's crown before, though he jested at the time. Perhaps he will stand for lawful succession now. Varys sighed, a soft lament. Renly loves feasts and pageantry. Lawful succession tastes like raw turnip beside roast swan. Then let him taste fear, Ned said. Tywin will not suffer Gregor's death unanswered. He will marshal the West, and if the Queen clings to the throne without baronial support, she invites siege. Renly might prefer pageantry, but he prefers life more. Littlefinger tossed dice high. They clattered on the council table. 5 skull symbols. He whistled. The stranger rides. Renly Baratheon received Ned in the White Sword Tower's Rose Garden at noon, sunlight gleaming off the emerald stags on his doublet. He strolled among blooming arbors, trimming faded petals with the nonchalance of a man cutting crusts from bread. Loras Tyrell flanked him, hand resting upon the hilt of a tawny sword engraved with golden lilies. The Knight of Flowers offered a courteous bow to Ned but did not smile. Ned came directly to purpose. He spoke of Joffrey's illegitimacy, Robert's seed found only in bastards like Gendry, not in golden-headed princelings. He laid bare Grand Maester Pycelle's potions, Cersei's incest, the rotting soul of the crown. He spoke of oath and duty and the peril looming like a red dawn in the west. Renly clipped a final rose, inhaled its fragrance. "You suspect I should claim the throne?" "It is not suspicion," Ned replied. "You are Robert's youngest brother, trueborn of age, beloved by many. The crown is yours by rights the moment Joffrey's bastardy is proved." Loras shifted. "Stannis is elder. Rights flow by order." "Stannis has all the warmth of a grave," Renly said, lips curved. "A king must be loved." "Love will not halt Lannister swords," Ned warned. "You halted one," Renly said, gesturing northward where the dragon pit spires rose. "And the realm sings of it already. Perhaps you should claim the throne. Ned the Just, the Northman king." Irony bit deep. Ned tasted blood. "I claim only honor." Renly studied him, perhaps seeking cracks. Finding none, he sighed melodramatically. "Say I march upon the throne, unseat nephew and sister. The city might cheer. Tyrell spears would join. Yet Tywin would come regardless. Riverlords might seize chaos for themselves. The realm would bleed again." "It already bleeds," Ned said. "Ask those torched along the Mummer's Ford." Loras's grip tightened on sword. His brother Garland had ridden patrol there. "Ser Gregor will kill no more. Others will in his stead," Ned replied. Renly brushed hair from brow, smearing rose pollen across his cheek. "You weary me, Stark. I shall think on your counsel. For now, keep your wolves leashed. Should the city ignite before I choose, your son's deeds might be buried under ash." That was all he would promise. Ned bowed stiffly and departed under the watchful gaze of Tyrell knights. He felt as though he had petitioned a boy for permission to save men from drowning, only to be told water was wet and thus inevitable. By mid-afternoon, heat pressed upon King's Landing like a sweaty hand. Flea Bottom stewed, but within the Tower of the Hand, a cold wind of revelation gusted. Varys arrived bearing certain parchment inked with gold thread. An order from Cersei commanding that, at sunset, all Northmen were to be confined to quarters for their own protection. At moonrise, they would be escorted to the docks and returned north under royal guard. Ned crumpled the parchment. "Royal guard or cage? The birds say cages seldom open again," Varys murmured. "Gold cloaks loyal to Joffrey will escort you to the cells newly vacated by Gregor's men." Hallis Malin cursed. The Great John roared, swore to cleave his way to the King's Road. But swords clanged in the courtyard below. Lannister reinforcements mustering, crimson cloaks bright as arterial blood. "We leave before sunset," Ned decided. "Varys, I need a map of the dry tunnels beneath Magers. There are forgotten sally ports at the river's edge. Valyrian schemers carved them ages past. Can your little birds open the grates?" "A song for a prince," Varys said, almost smiling. "But this prince may cost 2 songs. One in silver, one in secrets." "You will have both," Ned promised. While ravens fluttered toward Tywin's camp in the Westerlands, Sansa found herself summoned to Queen Cersei's solar. She entered trembling, escorted by Ser Boros Blunt, and discovered the queen seated at a loom, weaving crimson silk into a tapestry of lions devouring stags beneath a golden sun. Candle sconces painted her in molten hues. Not far off, Joffrey sprawled on cushions, snapping a bone lute string by string.
Cersei bad Sansa sit.
She spoke kindly, honey-laced with nightshade, about courage and faith, about fathers who sometimes lost their way. She asked whether Sansa loved the prince, whether she would stand by him even against traitors. Sansa, pale, nodded. Cersei brushed a curl from the girl's cheek, praising loyalty. Then Joffrey rose and demanded Sansa kiss his sword. She did, tears pricking eyes. He ordered her to write a letter to her brother Robb, commanding him to lay down arms should he dare rebel. Trembling, Sansa wrote as the queen dictated, pretty words hiding barbs of coercion. When finished, Cersei kissed her brow and dismissed her. Ser Boros escorted her not back to her father but to a suite deeper within the Red Keep, a gilded cage. Twilight bled across the bay as Ned donned plain boiled leather and strapped ice to his back. The great sword weighed as memory and doom combined. Arya arrived in doublet and breeches, needle at belt, cheeks smudged with ash to disguise shine. Gendry, found by Yoren and sworn to the Black in haste, stood ready to shepherd her along the waterfront. Yoren promised to secret them among recruits, bound for the wall before dawn. Ned wished to hug his girl, but the moment was too brittle. He feared shattering their courage. Instead, he clasped her shoulder. "You ride north," he said. "Find your mother at Riverrun. Tell her the old gods still watch." Arya's jaw set. "I'll bring Robb a sword if he wants one." She peered up, eyes luminous. "Will you come?" "When the time is right." A lie perhaps, but lies sometimes built bridges too narrow for truth. At the base of the tower, Northmen gathered in twos and threes, keeping to shadow. Hallis led them, 30 warriors, battered but unbroken. Great John refused to leave Robb's side. He would guard the infirmary until Boy or Winterfell called. Ned accepted the choice. He needed eyes there. Varys appeared in a black hood, produced a master key. "The Sally Port lies beneath the dungeons," he said. "Stone stairs, for levels. Beware the fifth turn. A pit trap." Ned inclined head. "The debt doubles. The realm's fate is credit enough," Varys whispered and ghosted away. The descent was lit only by sputtering torches stolen from corridors above. Each step groaned under centuries of secrecy. Rats fled. Cobwebs clung like burial shrouds. Twice the company halted while Hallis probed stone, discovering crumbling edges that might betray passage. At the fifth turn, Ned paused, memory searching. Maegor's tunnels were labyrinthine, but Varys's note proved true. He sighted grooves where a pivot stone once concealed the pit. Gingerly they skirted its rim, ice's pommel scraping limestone. Far ahead, a draft moaned, carrying briny night air. Relief swelled, then shattered. Steel rang behind them. Lanterns flared along the corridor mouth. Gold cloaks, 3 dozen, blocking retreat. Janos Slint called, voice greasy. "Lord Stark, by order of the Queen, you and yours will accompany us topside. Lay down arms." Lannister men bristled among the watch, crimson gleaming in lamplight. Hallis Malin drew sword. "We yield only to the king in the north." Ned stepped forward, voice echoing. "Janos, this path leads to freedom."
Stand Aside.
"The queen's order is treason. Treason keeps my purse full, M-Lord." Slint gestured. "Archers, Notch." There was no space to charge. Corridor too narrow. Ned calculated. Front rank 2 abreast could hold for moments, maybe till Arya slipped away. He turned to Hallis. "Shield wall." Blades lifted. Shields locked. Ned slid ice free. Its Valyrian ripples swallowed torchlight. Arrow shafts rattled against shields. One found a gap, striking a Karstark boy in throat. He collapsed with a wet rattle. Hallis roared, pushed forward. The corridor erupted into grisly chaos. Steel scraping stone. Men screaming as confined space magnified every thrust. Ned's world narrowed to ice's edge, black and red memory intertwining. He cleaved a gold cloak helm. Sparks showered. Blood misted warm on his face. Somewhere behind him, Arya shouted, "Left!" He pivoted, parried a spear thrust that would have pierced his kidney. Seconds felt like hours, yet weight of numbers pressed. A Lannister axeman wedged between shields, swung. Hallis caught the axe haft, but a glaive punched through his side. Ned heard the man grunt yet hold ground. Then a horn blast boomed from the rear, deep, northern in timbre. Torches bloomed behind Slint's men. From secret side passages burst gray wind, fur mottled, eyes ablaze with lunatic brilliance. The dire wolf leapt upon archers, tearing throat from one, ripping arm from another. In its wake followed Catelyn's uncle Ser Brynden Tully and a squad of river knights newly arrived with letters of safe passage for the Starks. Letters he now flung like feints while sword bit truth. The gold cloaks wavered, hemmed between wolves and shield wall. Ned seized momentum, barking advance. Shields surged, blades flashed. Slint tried to rally, but Grey Wind's snarl cut him short. The man turned to flee, only to collide with Tully's steel. Minutes later silence descended, broken only by dying groans and Grey Winds panting. Torches smoked black. Ned surveyed the carnage. 7 of his men lay dead. Twice as many foe littered flagstones. Blood pooled in mortar grooves, reflecting torch glimmer.
Ser Brynden gwaipt blade.
Messenger reached me at Riverrun as I was leaving to gather scouts. Figured you'd need a blackfish in dark water. Ned clasped his forearm. Your timing could teach gods humility. They dragged corpses aside, bound wounded, then pressed on. The Sallyport gate proved rusted but unclasped. Grey Wind nosed it, whined. Night Wind rolled in, carrying gull cries and ship-rigging creak. Beyond, on the riverbank, a flat-bottomed skiff bobbed. A cloaked figure held its mooring rope, little finger. He bowed with theatrical flourish. 1 bribe buys a boat, he said. 2 by silence. 3 perhaps by tomorrow. Ned regarded him warily. What do you buy? Chaos, Littlefinger whispered. It pays dividends. They boarded. Arya squeezed between barrels, eyeing Knitfinger as though he were bait tasting sour. Brynden unshipped the small sail. Hallis manned oars though blood dripped from his flank. Deck groaned. The skiff slid into dark current, slipping beneath the shadows of the city wall. King's Landing receded, a ridge of lantern sparks clinging to black cliffs. Overhead, clouds scudded across a gibbous moon. Ned stared at the reflection of those clouds rippling in the water, felt each throb of the oar like a heartbeat counted against destiny. He thought of Sansa locked above, of Robb wounded, of Catelyn marshalling Tully banners. He thought of Cersei weaving lions devouring stags. The skiff's prow sliced onward into the greater river gate channel where the Blackwater widened and the storm tide tugged at keel. Far downstream, galleys anchored. Among them Ned spied the painted masts of the Seahorse. A Lyseni trademan flagged to sail before dawn. Bribes already paid. Coin glimpsed future. Littlefinger produced a purse, jingled it. Your cabin is reserved, Lord Stark. North awaits. Ned rested ice across knees. North will not wait forever. Thrones seldom forgive flight. Thrones seldom forgive at all, Littlefinger countered. Dawn glimmered faint off to starboard, promising revelation. Ned closed his eyes and listened to the susurration of waves against hull, like snow slithering across Winterfell's walls. Each stroke carried him closer to home, and yet he sensed he sailed deeper into war's mouth than any rider on King's Road. In the Red Keep, bells tolled for morning prayer. Cersei awoke to Pycelle's frantic knocking. The Maester bore tidings. Lord Stark had vanished, his Northmen with him. The Mountain dead, the gold cloaks routed, Janos Slynt arrested by Brynden Tully's men. Cersei dismissed Pycelle's rattled apologies and strode to the window. Sunrise touched the city's rooftops like molten brass. Somewhere on that river a wolf-laden ship fled. Her nails bit palms. Rage threatened to shred composure, yet beneath rage she felt a fierce thrill. War came, yes, but war might burn away every chain that bound her. She summoned Ser Meryn. Fetch Tyrion from whatever brothel he stains, she ordered. Send ravens to father. Let it be known the North has declared blood feud.
Ser Meryn bauth.
Within his helm his eyes gleamed, not with courage, but the hunger of a man relieved to serve cruelty he comprehended. Cersei returned to the loom. Carefully she adjusted thread. The tapestry's lions feasted yet, but she would need to weave wolves now. Wolves contorted in pain, bleeding gold. Perhaps she would stitch the undead face of Gregor as well, towering behind them. A shadow of vengeance that, in her mind, would never rest. Leading the warp shuttle, she whispered a promise to the dawn. Winter shall shiver before the lion's roar. Each pass of thread echoed the vow. On the seahorse's deck Ned watched gulls wheel overhead, their cries swallowed in the rumble of sail. The coast of Blackwater vanished astern, replaced by open sea greening under sun. Robb would ride north or south depending on letters he must dispatch soon. Catelyn would rally rivermen. Riverrun lay between lion and wolf. War would spill there first. Hallis approached, fresh bandage bright against brown jerkin. We head for White Harbor, then Winterfell. But our hold is light, we lost half the grain barrels in corridor skirmish. We'll refill at salt pans. I am Lord. Hallis hesitated. Word among crew, they fear Lannister galleys. Captain says a swift black longship sailed before dawn, flying no colors. Let them fear, Ned said, but keep watch doubled. When Hallis departed, Arya leaned on rail, hair whipping. Will Robb still be king in the north now? He will be what the north needs, Ned answered, and the north will need much. Arya's eyes, gray and boundless, fixed on horizon. When I have needle and gray wind has teeth, maybe that's enough. Ned placed a hand on her small shoulder. The land they left behind seethed with treachery. The land ahead promised snow and sorrow. Between lay waves, rolling and endless. Like fate, like story. He thought of old Nan's tales. Of heroes who braved darkness. Of fires kindled against night's devouring clamor. Below, the ship's carpenter struck flint to light the galley lanterns. Sparks flew, brief and brilliant, before succumbing to wind. Yet one ember caught, glowed, nursed into flame. Ned watched, and in the tiny flare he saw Winterfell's hearth, children's laughter, the white knife shimmering beneath ice. He gathered that warmth within. Westeros would burn, crowns would shatter, brothers would bleed. But wolves endured. They howled beneath starlight, and every howl carried the name of home. Ned Stark turned his face to the wind, tasting salt and destiny intertwined, and vowed the wolf would not perish from the songs of men. The seahorse cut a pale wake through green-gray swells, its patched sails bellying with every gust that funneled out of the narrow sea. At the rail Ned Stark stood cloaked in salt spray, watching foam hiss along the hull like teeth retreating after a bite. Dawn had spilled gold over the horizon hours ago, yet the deck still glimmered with dew and apprehension. Hallis Mullen paced aft, checking lashings. Arya perched on a coil of hawser, boots swinging, eyes darting between gulls and every shadowed crease of the distant coastline. 3 days had slipped past since they stole from the Blackwater. 3 restless nights Ned spent half dozing in the cramped captain's cabin, ice propped against the bunk, listening for the creak that meant boarding hooks, the slap of oars that meant pursuit. Each dawn found no crimson sails upon the horizon, yet unease gnawed his belly. Lannisters did not forget. Golden debts were always collected. Mid-morning the wind freshened, but with it came a pewter band of cloud creeping along the southern rim of the sky. Ned felt the press of storm instinctively, the way a wolf scents snow long before the first flake. He descended to the quarterdeck where the Lyseni captain, a lean man named Darius Sander, balanced one sandal on the tiller. "Storm?" Ned asked. Darius shrugged thin shoulders. "Perhaps only rain, my lord. Yet I have seen that color birth more than raindrops." He spat into the sea, perhaps in propitiation. "We make for salt pans by sunset, but if weather closes we'll bear north to a cove I know off Crackclaw Point." "Crackclaw lies close to King's Landing," Ned said. "Close in distance, far in loyalty," Darius answered. "The crabs there hate the lion's roar, and they know the bogs as a wife knows her lover's scars." Ned turned that over while gulls cried overhead like mocking children. Distance mattered less than trust, and trust was a rarer coin each league south of Moat Cailin. But a gale could smash even a stout trader. He would not gamble Arya's life against Skyrath. He clasped the captain's arm. "Duas wisdom direx. I shall not question your seas." By noon wind had become knotted, hurling the seahorse northward faster than oars could dream. Waves staggered the deck, rigging whined. Sailors reefed canvas, shouting in Lysini and cracked Valyrian. Hallis and 2 Northmen helped lash cargo. Arya wrestled a runaway crate with the grim focus of one twice her years. Clouds broke like slate overhead, disgorging rain so hard each droplet felt a pebble. Lightning spider-webbed the gloom. Thunder slammed nearly upon its heels. Ned gripped rail, salt sting mingling with rain on his lips. Amid the chaos he felt a vibration. Not wind, nor wave. Deep, rhythmic, sinister. He peered abaft, and his pulse froze. A shadow pursued them. A single-masted longship, painted hull striped black and crimson. Prow carved into a snarling lion's head whose wooden mane whipped foam. Oars beat in perfect time, churning water like teeth through flesh. Above, a pennon snapped. Gold lion on scarlet field, quartered with a flaming heart. Lannister and crown. Ned crossed deck in 4 strides. "Captain, chase upon us." Daenerys' eyes widened, but his voice stayed level. They shipped from the Blackwater. Smaller, faster. If Storm had not forced us north, they would have hailed us sooner. He shouted orders. Men shifted, unfurling a square topsail though the gusts threatened to tear it. Hallis bounded to Ned's side. "We could heave to and board them afore they board us," he proposed, eagerness flickering despite bandaged ribs. "With half their oarsmen?" Ned shook his head. "We lack numbers. We run." Running proved prayerful work. Rain blurred horizon and deck alike. Lightning exposed the longship like a phantom stalking from flash to flash. Each time it seemed closer. At mid-afternoon, a crossbow quarrel hissed overhead, punching through sail with a wet pop. Another thunked into the mainmast. Sailors cursed. Arya ducked behind the coop of hens lashed near the galley door, fingers slipping to needle's hilt as though that sliver of steel might skewer the sea itself. An hour dragged by. Lightning failed, but the wind turned wilder still, gusting directly astern. Seahorse bounded forward. The longship wallowed, its single sail bowed dangerously, oars shipping water. Distance widened 3 ship lengths, 10, 20. Then thunder cracked so near Ned felt the shock in his teeth. A bolt split the heavens, stabbing the longship's masthead. For an instant, the lion's pennon blazed like a torch. Ned smelled scorched resin even across the surge. When glare subsided, the longship's top spar sagged, rigging aflame. Sailors leapt into water glowing blue-white. Lightning's fury bought them freedom. Daenerys steered into a narrow channel between jagged rocks marking the southern cusp of Crackclaw Point. Waves foamed among teeth of stone, but the captain threaded them with gambler's nerve. At last they nosed into a cove half-sheltered by leaning pines and cliffs carpeted in gray moss. Rain eased to a mist. Wind whistled overhead yet roared less in the lee. Anchors splashed. Crew collapsed where they stood, swearing oaths to every god in tongues Ned did not know. Hallis clasped Ned's shoulder, laughter catching like coughs in his chest. Arya sprinted to the rail, staring back at the open sea where only storm remained. Night fell heavy within the cove. A single fire crackled beneath an overhang, smoke smothered by sodden wood to avoid betraying glow to hostile eyes. Ned sat with Daenerys, Hallis, Arya, Brynden Tully, and a dozen battered Northmen. Gray wind prowled perimeter, hackles rippling each time forest branches sighed. They ate salt pork and hardtack softened in broth. Raindrops tapped the iron pot lid like impatient fingers. Conversation was sparse, but eventually Brynden spoke. "Ravens reached Riverrun yesterday," the Blackfish said. "Catelyn sends word. Edmure rides to rally levy. The Malisters muster at Seaguard. Roose Bolton marches from the Dreadfort. Manderley fleets ready at White Harbor." Ned exhaled. "Robb. Healing. Yet the boy writes he will march once maesters allow saddle. He means to cross the Trident before the harvest ends." Hallis grunted approval. "Young wolf's bite draws blood." Ned stared into firelight playing across rain-slick stone. He pictured Robb astride a dun courser, banners snapping. The direwolf of Stark, the running trout of Tully, horns braying across autumn fields. Pride warred with dread. Boys became men by sword and flame, true enough. but fathers paid the price in sleepless nights. "We sail at first light," Ned decided. "The storm will weaken by dawn. We must outpace tidings of our refuge." Dawn burned away gray tatter to reveal a world scrubbed raw. Seahorse tacked north under calmer sky. Whitecaps glittered. Arya climbed ratlins to the fighting top, wind flinging her hair a black streamer, while gray wind prowled below, whining each time mast tilted. From that vantage Arya claimed she spied whales playing, though sailors scoffed they were only waves cuffing each other. 3 more uneventful days brought them within sight of salt pans, a cluster of wharves and granaries huddling behind a palisade still charred from iron-born raids of old. Ned insisted on landing despite Daenerys' misgivings. Supplies were near gone. Men needed fresh water, cloth for wounds, rumor for caution. They docked beneath watchful eyes of local guards in patched mail. Ned disembarked cloaked in plain wool, sword hidden beneath oilskin. With him went Hallis, Brinden, and Arya disguised as cabin boy. Salt pans smelled of smoked fish and river silt. Gulls shrieked above mudflats. At the fish tide in Ned purchased jugs of watered ale and plates of eel pie, listening while fishermen gossiped. Word of Gregor's death had swelled to legend. Some said his corpse rose that night, a white bound in chains of wildfire. Others argued the mountain never died, that a faceless man had taken his place and Robb slew a ghost. But more pressing tales told of Tywin marching east with 30,000. Heavy horse, red cloaks like a migrating sunset. Harrenhal's melted towers already flew the lion again. Those riverlords not sworn to Tully were bending knee or losing heads. Brendan's jaw tightened at that. If Edmure dallies, Riverrun may find siege lines sooner than bread.
Ned sipped ale, fit in puzzle pieces.
Tywin aims to punish Riverlands, secure fords, flank any northern advance. But he dispatches smaller spearheads to hunt us. At mention of smaller spearheads, the inn's one-eyed host produced rumor of Lannister outriders passing 3 days prior, bound north along the coast. Golden lions on cloaks, pikes tipped crimson. Ned paid triple for directions to an old smuggler's path through the marshes west of Maidenpool that would circumvent likely patrols. They departed salt pans before sunset, Seahorse's hold replenished with barley sacks, smoked fish, and 6 kegs of sweet water. Captain Daenerys eyed Ned curiously. "You navigate land by sea, sea by land. It is curious dance," he said. "Better curious than dead." At White Harbor a week later, spires of the Manderley Keep rose like ivory spears against a canvas of storm-stained sky. Trident gulls cawed. Harbor teemed with carracks and longships fitting ballistae. The Wolf's Den fortress perched on its crag, banners snapping, white merman on sea-green field. Seahorse berthed amid bustle. Lord Wyman Manderley's steward met Ned on the quay, breathless with relief. Ravens had warned of his coming, but rumor insisted he was captured at King's Landing. The steward guided them through wet cobbled streets where small folk knelt or offered prayers as Ned passed. News traveled swift. Their lord had faced a lion and lived. Within the new castle's great hall, Lord Wyman, immense even atop cushioned chair, rose with surprising grace, greeting Ned with deep bow. "North remembers," he said, voice booming enough to rattle dishware. He ordered feasting. Honey-roasted duck, trenchers of brown bread, stewed turnips, ale spiced with nutmeg. Yet before bread was broken, Wyman lifted fat fingers. "Letters," he said. "From Riverrun, from the twins, from Moat Cailin." Ned accepted sealed parchments. The first, from Caitlin, spoke of Robb's steady healing and his desire to march soon. The second, signed by Ser Roderick Castle at Winterfell, told of Karstark and Bolton banners streaming south, of houses Serwyn and Hornwood mustering. The northern host would reach the neck within fortnight, awaiting their liege lord's command. Ned folded parchment and closed eyes a moment, feeling the weight of words. Destiny pulled him like tide. Each beat of heart was a drum along the march road. He looked to Arya, cheeks smeared with stew she'd stolen before Grace. She wiped mouth with sleeve and grinned. He felt the same feral grin echo inside. A wolf's answer to thunder. A hush fell as hall doors banged wide. A rider strode in, cloak-drenched. He bent knee before Wyman, proffering a scroll sealed with crimson wax bearing crowned lion. Wyman broke it, scanning and paling beneath beard of white silk. He passed the message to Ned. It read in measured script. Lord Eddard Stark is hereby declared traitor anew. He has abducted his daughter, slain men sworn to the Iron Throne, fled justice. For crimes against crown and realm, his life is forfeit. Houses harboring him share his guilt. Beneath the royal seal of King Joffrey Baratheon. Laughter erupted from Ned's throat, short, savage. They fear ghosts and so invent crimes. He looked about the hall. I will not hide behind Wyman's walls and draw siege upon White Harbor. I ride for Winterfell with dawn. From there I march south as Robb wills. Wyman's heavy face folded into grim acceptance. Then White Harbor marches as well. My merman will swim behind the wolf, even into Lion's Den. Cheers rose from nobles crowded along dais. Steel rasped as swords lofted in salute. Yet over the uproar Ned heard another clamor. Bells tolling from harbor towers. The steward dashed back in, face chalk. Ship upon the horizon, my lord. Black sails with red border.
Ned stiffened.
The longship or another? None could say. They hurried to parapets overlooking bay. Evening mist cloaked water, yet a silhouette cut through, low, lean, many-oared. Lanterns flickered along gunnels like cat eyes. Arya sniffed the wind beside her father. Smells like fear, she said softly. Ned laid hand on her shoulder. Sometimes fear smells like war. That night Ned slept little. He roamed battlements, spoke with Manderley captains, confirmed arrow stockpiles and boiling oil cauldrons. Within hall below, lords debated. Strike first against the ship, await capture, dispatch envoys. Ned allowed the talk but said nothing else. Decisions must wait for morning's light. Hours before dawn, he felt a presence beside him on the wall walk. Brynden Tully offered a flask of pear brandy. They drank in silence, eyes measuring sea horizon where the longship now lay anchored just beyond Scorpion Range. Sails furled, a patient wound upon the water. Lion's tooth waiting to bite, the blackfish muttered. Or a messenger's tongue. They send an envoy to parley under white flag, Ned guessed. Cersei wants my public submission or my public death. Brynden wiped brandy from mustache. Give her neither. March at first light. Leave White Harbor to guard its own. She cannot bleed every coast.
Ned Wattits vævetops glimmer under halvmånen.
He felt Winterfell calling in the wind. Aye, he said. Morning revealed the envoy. A gilded barge rowing from the lion ship, a lone figure standing beneath canopy. Small, rotund, cloak of crimson fur trimmed in black. Tyrion Lannister. When barge bumped White Harbor's quay, he swung onto stone with exaggerated flourish, cane tapping. City guard escorted him to Newcastle's audience court where Ned awaited, flanked by Wyman, Hallis, and armed retainers. Tyrion removed foxskin hat, bowed low. Lord Stark, always a pleasure to chase you across half the realm. Warms the ankles. Ned's expression did not thaw. You risk much sailing into a port sworn against lions. Risk is relative. Tyrion's mismatched eyes glimmered. I carry guest right under banner of truce. To break it would stain northern honor, a color rumored fast indeed. Speak your message. Tyrion unfolded parchment, cleared throat. By decree of His Grace King Joffrey, House Stark is offered amnesty should Eddard Stark present himself in King's Landing to stand trial. His son's treason will be forgiven, daughters restored to favor, lands preserved. Refusal will be met with full wrath of crown and westerlands. Hallis spat on flagstones. Wyman's jowls quivered. Ned stepped forward. Full wrath already marches. I have seen its work on Riverland's villages. Tell your sister I will stand before the gods, mine and hers, when lions kneel beside me to confess incest and murder. Tyrion sighed theatrically. Pity. I also bear personal request. Release my brother's rumored killer, that brat of a direwolf pup. He smirked. But your son's pet ate him, didn't he? Enough. Ned's voice carried like axe on wood. "You have your answer. Carry it back." Tyrion inclined head. "Very well. I shall also carry the wise counsel to keep your daughters safe. Sansa remains dear to the queen, you know." He pivoted, cane clicking. In doorway he paused, glancing over shoulder. "For what little it's worth, Lord Stark, I wish you better luck than honor affords." He departed. Ned stared after him until the echo of cane faded. Wyman exhaled. "What now, Lord? Now we ride." They left White Harbor that afternoon beneath banners half-furled for stealth. Direwolf of Stark, Merman of Manderley. 200 mounted knights and 1,000 spearmen tramped up the King's Road. More followed from villages as horns summoned levy. Ned rode at column head on a charcoal courser named Stone, Hallis and Brynden beside him. Arya rode behind Ser Desmond Grell on a shaggy Garen, threatened to bite anyone calling her lady. Grey Wind loped ahead, sentinel scenting wind. Autumn painted fields amber. Wagon trains of refugees trudged south. Farmers fleeing rumor of ironborn raiders, fisherfolk dreading war, small folk clutching bundles of children and geese. They bowed or stared wide-eyed at Ned. Some cheered, others wept, but all parted path. The wolf of Winterfell marched and the land felt its footfall. At Molestown they learned Robb crossed the neck, establishing camp at the ruins of Moat Cailin while engineers cleared causeways. Bolton and Karstark hosts merged there, swelling numbers to near 18,000. Scouts reported Frey banners stirring inside the Twins. Walder demanded surety of reward before opening gates. Ned cursed Walder's bones. The crossing remained the swiftest path south. The next night, as campfires crackled beneath a harvest moon, Ned summoned his captains within a ring of wicker lanterns. Maps spread across a camp table weighted by daggers. Brynden traced lines with gauntlet finger. Tywin sits at Harrenhal, burning out Tully lands. Ser Jaime raids upriver, cutting supply. Robb will need cross the Green Fork quick or risk entrapment. Wyman nodded, chins bobbing. If Lord Walder delays, Moat Cailin could become Coffin. Ned studied inked rivers. We split forces. I ride ahead with Light Horse 2000. We cross White Knife's ford, then gallop to the Twins, confront Walder face to face. Hallis brings main column behind. "One arrow fells a father," Hallis warned. "Then I'll dodge swift." Ned allowed a rare smile. Walder won't shoot a guest delivering potential daughter-in-law. That raised eyebrows. Ned explained quickly. He would offer Walder marriage alliance, Robb perhaps, or one of cousins, to seal crossing and secure Frey loyalty. Bargains forged at sword point fractured. Those forged by matrimony bound flesh and blood. Plans cemented. Captains saluted. Ned dismissed them, then lingered alone by dying fire. Sparks spiraled into dark sky. He felt their fleeting glow mirrored in his spirit, brief, brave, easily quenched. Around him men laughed, sharpened blades, dozed. Yet doom stalked unseen. He touched Ice's wolf-head pommel, felt the metal chill. Footsteps approached. Arya emerged, cloak too large, looped with horsehairs she claimed warded dream monsters. "You're going ahead," she said, not a question. "I am. I want to ride too." Her chin jutted like a tiny fortress. Ned knelt, meeting her eyes. "This path edges danger sharper than needle. Stay with Hallis. He'll teach you guard forms, how to parry arrow." She scowled, but after a heartbeat nodded. "Bring Sansa home." "I will." He brushed her cheek. "And when she's safe, I'll teach you the water dance myself." Arya's lip twitched toward smile. She turned and slipped into tense maze. Ned watched until canvas swallowed her, then looked skyward. Stars bled across velvet like frost. Somewhere among them the North Star burned. Pale, unerring, guiding lost travelers. Ned fixed his gaze upon it, felt its chill clarity seep into bones. Tomorrow he would ride to parley with a man who changed allegiance as often as stockings. Beyond, Tywin's hammer awaited. Sansa's fate dangled. Robb's army treaded perilous ground. But Ned Stark had weathered storm, prison, lightning, pursuit. Each trial stripped flesh, left steel. He banked the embers, drew cloak, and lay upon hard earth. Wolf song drifted from distant treeline, gray wind calling moon. Ned closed his eyes to that mournful chorus, yet within hope answered. War would rend kingdoms, but wolves endured. They would carve truth through lies, honor through treason, winter through fire. He slept, dreaming of falling snow that never touched ground, held aloft by breath of gods until right hour.